Hello everyone, I'm live on both YouTube and Instagram now. Welcome to my live studio stream that happens every Thursday afternoon from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Rachel Pollock and this is my home studio. This is the first studio stream of 2021. That's pretty exciting. And I see that I have some folks joining on Instagram. Hi, welcome to the live studio stream today. I have some exciting things to share in terms of new millinery tools that I have received this past week. And then I have hopefully a couple of projects that I'd like to complete in the course of this week's stream. I will at least get one finished that I'm sure of. So let's take a look though at this new millinery tool that tools, I guess. It's a collection of things. Let me get situated here on my pillows. It's a collection of tools, and I was sort of the guinea pig for this new product. It's a set of head size ovals that are for milliners, for pattern making and hat making. And this set is the smaller head sizes. It's 5 ovals that range from 21 inches to 23 inches. And if you look at these up close, you'll see that these are done on a laser cutter / etcher, and there's a cross here that marks your center front and center back and your side seams, or your side to side quadrants, which are measurements that I always put on my patterns when I'm drafting a sewn hat pattern. And each one is measured with the circumference, and this one has the logo of my blog / YouTube channel engraved in it. And this set goes 21 to 23. The reception from when this set was released, this man that makes these, Randy Handley, who is an alumna of our graduate program at UNC-Chapel Hill, a lot of people responded positively, but had larger head sizes than the 21 to 23 range. And in talking with him about the larger head sizes that I'm getting in terms of the actor population that comes and works at the theater in the past, well, not the past year because of the pandemic, but prior to that, the past year worth of productions, we had 2 company actors with head size measurements of 25 and a half, and even one man whose head size was 26. So now Randy has expanded his line of millinery ovals up to 26 in half-inch increments, and I ordered, so this set I got for free because he was trying out this idea. And I was like the guinea pig, I guess. But I ordered the expanded set so that I will have the full set in half-size measurements from 21 up to 26. Because I think these are super exciting. You know, at the theater, previously in the pattern archive there, I had oak tag, which is like a type of cardstock. I had oak tag ovals in both. This is kind of standard oval shape, and then I also had the sort of head size perimeter that's shaped more like a Tylenol, where it's longer on the long axis and shorter on the side axis, where somebody has a head that's very long but very narrow. So I have ovals in both of those in the range of head sizes, but even cardstock, where you are not, it's not as flimsy as pattern paper, for example, or even butcher paper. It's beefier than that, but still, I mean, I draft a lot of hat patterns, and this is in drafting board, so it's about 1/8 of an inch thick wood that it has been cut from and etched on, and it's got this handy hole through it. So if you work at a shop where you hang your patterns on those little hooks with a hanger that goes, it's like a toggle that goes through a hole that you punch in the pattern. If it's a cardstock pattern, these have that hole so they can be hung in your pattern collection. Or I guess you could pin them to the wall with a tack or whatever. So anyway, I am super excited about these, and I am not being paid to advocate this product. It's just something that I was involved in the development of it, so I'm excited that it is a good product for milliners. So I mention it here in this studio stream in case any of you all that are watching it would like your own set of these. Randy is selling these on Etsy. I believe his shop name is, I think it's Seams and Laser Beams, because he got a Glowforge, which is like a magic CDC machine that you can do laser etching and laser cutting, and I believe it also does vinyl cutting and other types of material. So he's starting to produce a line of things such as this head size oval collection. I think he also just recently released a 1/4 inch thick version of the French curves for drafting, because like as he said, those are normally they're thin, they're like a 1/16 of an inch thick. You break them a lot, or I break them a lot. He breaks them a lot. Several of the people in the focus group were saying, yeah, that's flimsy. So he's cutting those in 1/4 inch acrylic. That I'm super excited about that. And other, I guess, other products in development. So anyway, I'm just really excited about these and what they mean in terms of changing the method by which I can draft patterns because of their durability and the fact that I have, hopefully soon, the full range. I had hoped that the second set, going up to 26-inch head size measurement, would have arrived by now, but actually due to delays in the U.S. Postal Service, which have been happening since well before the election, I'm not going to get them until Saturday. But still, even so, my semester does not start until Monday. So, well, actually, technically, my semester doesn't start until Wednesday. But we're back at work. Oh, I see some folks in Instagram. Hi, Arlene. Hi, Kim Fraser. Hello. I see some folks joining on both platforms. It's good to have you all here on my live studio stream. So anyway, I'm going to put these away for now. When I'm able to be back on site in my millinery studio at the theater, I'm super excited to add them to the collection there. But for now, I'm doing all my work here at home in my home studio. So that's where I'm going to keep them for now. So in terms of news about what we're doing at the theater, we found out this week, Actors Equity approved our first show, Edges of Time, which is a one-woman production that was written by a colleague of mine at the Department of Dramatic Art, Jacqueline Lawton. It's a world premiere of a script that she wrote. It features one of our company actors, Catherine Hunter Williams, in that role. And we built a dress for it last semester because we knew that show would go into rehearsal before we were even back to school. And so the costume needed to exist so that once they start filming, I believe this Friday. So we didn't, there was no way we were going to be able to build it in 2 days or whatever. The show is set in 1962, I believe. The dress is a period dress from that time. And like I said, it got made, I believe the team, it was one grad student as the draper with 2, maybe 3 other folks assisting her to produce this dress in, I think they had a couple of weeks to do it. The issue with costume production right now in this COVID context is that we are only allowed access to the costume shop and the equipment there, like the dress forms and the industrial sewing machines and such, in staggered shifts. Like, we can't all be there at the same time. Some of us, myself included, are have medical conditions that make us extra susceptible to the virus, so we are not on campus at all in the facility. Other people who are maybe less likely to get the virus, or not, who are not cleared to just work from home, people who need to be on site. They're only, I think the maximum capacity of the shop is maybe 4 people, which, we have a staff of, there's 7 grad students, there's 3 faculty, and ordinarily there's 2 staff who have been furloughed. So, you've got a staff of 12 people, sometimes more, if the costume designers there and stuff, that are normally working in the space, and you cut that back to a third if those people can be there at a time. So in making this dress, we ordinarily would have this team all on site working on the dress. It gets made, it takes, it takes however long it takes, but it takes about 3 times longer to do everything now because of that reduced capacity requirement. So, a team of 4 people working on a costume, that's the maximum number of people that could be there at a time, except that there needs to be a supervisor, a manager, so the whole team can't be there at the same time. Anyway, suffice it to say, that show gets starts filming this Friday, I think. And we found out this, at least so far, that we will be producing a filmed version of Shakespeare's As You Like It, set in the 1920s. And we're constructing, I believe, a total of 7 costumes for that, as well as accessories like hats and masks and so forth. And my graduate student, Lauren Woods, is a 3rd-year graduate student, has expressed an interest in costume crafts. And she is the head craftsperson on site for that show. So she's running all of the dye processes, and she is constructing mock-ups to take into the fittings and so forth. And I am supporting her as if I were an overhire person that they were outsourcing stuff to. So she's going to put together some project packets for me, where then here in my home studio, probably in a future studio stream, perhaps next week or the next. Oh, hey Trisha. Trisha signed on Instagram over there. I see there's 2 more people in YouTube. So if you want to say hi in the chat, I'm glad to have you here. But so we're going to be working on As You Like It. I will be given an assignment that I will do as part of this studio stream. Potentially for my students to observe if they want to. This stream is no longer really tied to the class that I'm teaching, the way that it was in the fall, where I was teaching millinery, because I can do millinery on this table. My students can watch me make hats. They can learn from the observation. This spring I'm teaching dye class. So that's not really conducive to, there are a couple of things that I'm going to try to do with food safe dyes here at the house, but for the most part, that's something that really has to happen on site in the dye shop. So this stream is not as directly correlating to the class. They'll be able to observe Lauren doing the dye processes for the shows that the theater is producing, or for As You Like It. I don't know if there's dye processes for whatever comes after that. I think there's one more show. Anyway, but I'm going to stick with doing handwork and millinery and any sort of craft that I can do on a tabletop. Now, my understanding that my first assignment for As You Like It is going to be some masks. This is set a couple of years after the Tulsa massacre that happened in Oklahoma, in which huge number of African American citizens were murdered by white supremacist mobs, and so this happens a couple of years after that, and there's a scene at the very beginning that is sort of a flashback to that massacre, to then inform the entire rest of the show. Like, this is where everyone's heads are at. This is what they recollect as happening. And so that's where a lot of the interpersonal drama that happens is coming from, in terms of fearing exterior involvement. And so I'm going to be making those masks. The mob is we got a series of research images, and some of them are sort of rudimentary devil masks. If you can imagine like a devil mask that was knitted out of yarn or sewn out of fabric. Well, some of them are more like, I think it's a Batman villain, a guy that his head is just basically in like a burlap bag. Cillian Murphy played him in whatever movie it was. Anyway, that sort of creepy, like looks like a bag on your head except scary. There's several of those that have to be made that I'm going to be manufacturing. Someone is asking, like some of those Halloween costumes from the 1930s. Yes. The Halloween costumes in the early and mid 20th century that were genuinely terrifying, even though they were just like sewn fabric masks, is kind of, I think, where the designer is coming from with her concept on what these mob masks are meant to be. This whole thing is conceived by our director, Tia James, who is not the original director that was attached to the production when they programmed it back before COVID. But that gentleman is not a resident of, I think, North Carolina even. And anyway, Tia was really affected by the circumstances surrounding the publicity that came back around about the Tulsa massacre, attached to all of that stuff, where Trump had a rally there on the anniversary of it, and it became a thing that was part of the public consciousness once more, in a broader sense than just in Black American history. And so even though As You Like It, as a script, is traditionally a sort of a lighthearted comedy, I think, this is me projecting, but I think that Tia wants to start with that flashback to sort of underscore the fact that even if you have a lighthearted comedy, that event can be lighthearted and fun, but there is still horribleness in the world that you cannot escape, and how that affects people's psyche and the way that people react to things. So anyway, I will probably be making those creepy masks for the murderous mob. In the studio stream, I believe I'm getting a package of materials and the design information. It's really like research pictures that's going to be delivered here, hopefully tomorrow. I'll have to double check about that. But I think that's the schedule we decided upon, is that every Friday I would get a delivery and also a pickup. So I have a week to make these things. So I'll be doing the patterning and conceptual stuff in the early part of the week, and I'll probably get to the point where I'm finishing them in the studio stream next week. But this week, I actually have stuff that I hope to work on, that I hope to complete, actually. I have 2 projects, and this is the first one right here, which, if you follow me on Instagram, I made a post recently about how in this time of pandemic that the death figures for U.S. citizens are so high now that it's difficult to imagine someone who is not 1 degree of separation or less from a victim of the virus. You know, at this point, I have 8 friends who have lost a parent, and my partner's sister is a nurse, was in a nursing home. She lost numerous residents and 2 colleagues. So, you know, that everyone is in mourning. This, you know, even once the pandemic is over, we all have a whole bunch of grief to deal with. And how, as a milliner, how could I contribute to that in terms of helping to cope in whatever ways we can? And I put up a picture of, I started pinning out this mourning veil here, which this is a circular piece of lace that I have put it on the head form at an angle so that, well, actually I can put it on myself really to show you vaguely what I'm thinking. That when it's positioned on the head, it completely covers the face in the front and then hangs down the back, kind of similar to a bridal veil. But you can see through the lace just fine. The weave, well, not weave, the tatting structure. Well, it's not tatting either. It's machine lace. So, the way that the lace is constructed has quite a bit of this sort of open work knit and at varying degrees of fineness. And it's very easy to see through from the inside when it's right up close to your face, but from the outside, you could be under there with tears streaming down your face and walking past someone, they wouldn't notice. But they would notice, theoretically, I think we're all familiar with Victorian mourning traditions and expectations. And the idea in creating these is that when you see someone veiled in black lace, that you know automatically that person is, I'm sorry, I have something in my eye. I'm really not crying, but I could be if I conjured it up. But that when you see someone veiled in black lace, that they are grieving something. And I guess I thought I could create a contemporary version of the mourning veil that someone who has lost someone recently, either to COVID or to any number of the other things that still kill us, like cancer and heart attacks and so forth. But you could go out and do the things that you still have to do. You still have to pick up groceries, pick up your children from your babysitter, or whatever it is that you need to do to be out in public-esque in these times in which we're distanced from one another. And the visual signifier of the veil would preclude intrusive comments and inquiries, hopefully, from strangers, and that the person who is grieving could freely cry without being embarrassed that there's tears running down their face. Because, speaking for myself, that is how grief affects me, is suddenly I will spontaneously begin crying without any real trigger for it, or it will be something that is so incredibly mundane, like I walk past a tree that is still shedding its leaves, and I remember that I was walking in fall colors with the person who has passed away, and suddenly I'm crying. So anyway, I came up with, I pinned out the mock-up for this, and I took a picture of it and put it on Instagram. And I used some different hashtags, such as mourning, Victorian mourning, loss, mourning veil, rest in peace, things like that. And I actually somebody commented on that post, and it was a woman who had recently, just this past Saturday, her husband passed away, and she was saying, where can I get one of those? That would make me feel so much better about doing the things I have to do, because, you got kids still got to eat, things like that. Long story short, I'm finishing this veil and I'm sending it to her. Because, she saw it. It looked like something that she would find comforting. It's a mock-up. It's not a mock-up. It's a prototype. How about that? It's a prototype. So it was really a test for purpose, like a test version to see, will it function the way that I hope that it will? And it is. So I'm finishing it out. And then I suppose if anybody saw a picture of it and wanted one, then I would make one for them. But let me show you the nature of the mourning veil and what I need to do to finish it, which I will be doing here in a moment. So the veil, I have a couple of different ornaments that go across. There's an interior headband that it's not on there right now, but that holds it on the head. And where that headband is located in this round piece of lace, I don't know if you can see that, I stitched a piece of fairly thick twill tape to the on the inside of the lace. So the twill tape is facing the top of the head, and there are 2 loops in that twill tape that this headband will thread through, and that will hold it onto the head. But in addition to that being the anchor for the veil to be attached to the wearer's hair, headdress, so forth, it also serves as a base of stability for the ornamental piece that will cover that twill tape reinforcement on the outside. So it doesn't just look like, I don't want it to seem too much like a religious garment. Like I don't want the person wearing this to be mistaken for a woman in a burqa, for example. That's a very different garment. And when you just have sort of the round, sleek, close to the head shape, to my eye, that reads very much like not a mourning garment, that there needs to be some sort of ornamentation up here that that could allow for some dimensionality, but not so much so that if the wearer of the veil wants to pull it back to reveal their face to someone for whatever reason, then it's not going to then be this clumpy wad on top of their head. So I came up with a couple of different adornments, and actually this one was my first one, which this, if you can see that, this is some antique black grosgrain. I think if you've been visiting the stream for months and months, I originally pinned out some hat trim with this stuff on a much earlier hat design I was working on. This vintage 2-inch wide grosgrain, and this is an ornament. This type of ornament is one that I love to make these if I have choice about how I'm trimming out the hat. It is effectively, you take the ribbon and keeping it flat, keeping the flat surface unfolded, you basically tie it in a knot and press that knot flat to get this sort of pentagon, 5-sided shape here. And then there's a tail. In this case, there's a tail coming off one side, and the other one I've tucked the remainder of the ribbon back in upon itself. So this was the first adornment that I made that I thought, oh, maybe I will put that on there, and it will be the ornament that covers the twill tape on the top of this headband for the veil. I decided against this because, partly because I was going to have to really nail it down along the front side to deal with the veil coming up and down potentially for the wearer. And I don't like to sew something onto a piece, any sort of millinery construction. I don't like to put too much sewing into it. Oh, Christina's in the Instagram. Hi, Christina. So good to see you. I'm working on this mourning veil. And I've decided against this sort of, I don't want to say vintage, but I learned to do this kind of pressed knot 5-sided design from ribbon in I believe it was a ribbon manipulation reference from the 1920s. So I like this version, but I don't like, I like this ornament, but not for this thing. Oh, welcome. I have someone else joining. I can't read that far away, but hello. I'm glad to have you here. What I have decided though, and Kim, who is in the chat on Instagram, oh, Arlene is in both places. Hi, Arlene. She just commented in the YouTube chat over there. So I freely admit I stole this idea from Kim Fraser, who's in the Instagram audience. She did a project when she was my millinery student for a semester some years ago, in which she researched felt trims, or trims made from felt, usually from the offcut felt from blocked hats of the 30s and 40s. And she did a whole series of different ways to manipulate small pieces of felt to create things like felt feathers and felt leaves and felt motifs of all kinds. And one of the things that she did was a series of these stacked triangles. And that's sort of what I have gone with for, and it is the one that I'm going to use. So you cut yourself, or these are slightly different. They're much more elongated than the ones that Kim did, and she did a different stitching adornment, the top stitching on felt as a way of adding visual interest. You see that in a lot of the hats from the 30s and 40s, more so the 40s, I think. But so these, I elongated this is pretty much taken straight from Kim's project, this triple triangle, but my triangle is longer, and I have a triple row of stitching that the central top stitch goes, from end to end, and then on either side it's staggered down a little bit, so it's kind of like it's evoking that sort of Art Deco geometry that you see with symmetricality and geometric shapes and so forth. And I liked this because the motif of this lace is very scrolly, but it also has these sections where we have geometric elements that are kind of like, it's reverse scalloped like a spider web almost. I mean, it's not a spider web lace thing, but there is a scalloped section or reverse scalloped motif in the middle of this medallion lace that I thought I liked that that visual aesthetic element of the points that are created in those scallops, and I wanted to evoke that in this headband ornamentation. So I also liked when I pinned it out on here, which, let me pin it back into place. Once it's secured on here, I liked that when I took the veil up and down, that the points of these triangles then stood up a little bit and had some visual interest, that it was not just a flat band on top of there, the way that I love this, but it's a flat band on top of this thing. So I'm going with these felt ornaments inspired by Kim's wonderful project, and I'm stitching them on there. So I mentioned that there's top stitching down the center of the motif. And what I want to do, so I'm going to line up the top of my triangle with the edge of my twill tape anchor in this veil. And I want to use the path of that top stitching as my means for sewing this thing down to the band of, I need to take my glasses off, sewing this felt triangular motif down to my twill tape anchor. So I don't want to really sew it on there super beefily, but I want to tack it in several places, probably 5, I'm thinking, 5 little tacks across the length of the twill tape to stabilize it. Yeah, there we go. And I mentioned that this twill tape has straps, for lack of a better term, that will be the headband to where it will thread through those. So I need to make sure that when I sew this to the twill tape that I don't sew it in such a way that I tack down one of those straps, because that's what's holding it to the headband for the wearer. So there I have pinned it down. You can see it better on the Instagram or on the YouTube view than you can on Instagram. So I pinned it down, and as I pinned it, I was imparting some curvature. Like if I pinned it down flat against the table, then when it went over the curvature of the headband, it would pull and buckle in ways that are undesirable. And I don't want that to happen, particularly because I know that I am sending this to that woman who commented on the original image that she would find comfort in having a mourning veil in the face of the loss of her husband. I don't want to send her something that looks like wrinkly and weird. Like it's already a sort of a social challenge, I think. Not really, but that to go out somewhere when you are grieving is hard enough in and of itself. And I do think that, and I hope that she agrees with me, I do think that having a veil would let others know that, maybe small talk is not for today. But I definitely want the veil to be as good as it can possibly be, not only because of my own pride in my own work, but because I'm sending it to someone who has suffered a loss. Anyway, all that is a lot to basically say that I'm trying to sew this thing down here in the course of this studio stream, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to do so. I think I will. And if I get it done before the end of the studio stream, which is my actual real goal, then I have another thing that I've done with flat felt, fur felt skirting. I've made another one of those super cute 1940s hats, and this time in black fur felt, which is where these scraps came from. And that one I am going to put trim on. The first two that I made, the slate blue heathered felt and the gray, that one was actually heathered flannel. Anyway, both of those first two iterations of that hat, I did not trim them at all because I felt like the shape of the hat was so unusual that just having the hat in that shape was kind of enough. And then I made the red one, and right at Christmas time, and so it kind of became this, like, I don't want to say goofy Christmas hat, but I don't know. I feel like any thematic Christmas piece of fashion is already somewhat dubious. Or I guess it is definitely of the time of the 40s, I guess, if it's going to be sophisticated. Make sure I'm not sewing over my second loop. But then when I've done this shape in black, which if you are watching on YouTube, you can see it behind me. Well, you might, no, it's just out of the view of the people on IG. But if you could look just behind me, my model, my mannequin that's on the table behind me is wearing the black version of this, and it's super sophisticated, and I think it needs some trim. Oh, Christina has made a comment, and so has Arlene, and I can't read them. My eyesight is so bad. I will have to scooch up next to the IG screen and see what your comments are. Let me just put my needle in my material. Maybe something a bit larger. Probably not, since you're sewing through to the bottom and back. Darning egg would help. Not in this case. I don't. Well, that's an interesting suggestion. I'm not sure if a darning egg would help with this or not because of the nature of the needle that I'm using. I think that I have wound up, unfortunately, using essentially a leather needle here, and the sort of knife-like point that a leather needle has, I think would actually, instead of bouncing off a darning egg, it would stick in it in a way that was undesirable. But I do have one in the next room. If I weren't almost done, I might give it a try. But I am actually to the end of my felt ornament. So let me take my glasses back off while I tie this thread off. And it's exciting because I have, yes, we've got 20 minutes left to the stream, so I actually can show you what I'm working on with respect to the trim of this super sweet 1940s black fur felt. It's like a sophisticated mini Homburg, I guess. It's such a great shape. I want to wear it everywhere. And honestly, now that I have a black one, I probably will. More likely to wear that than the blue one. Or I guess I would wear the gray one. Ah! My scissors are so far away. Poor planning on my behalf there. So yes, I have managed to sew my fur felt ornaments, triangular deco band ornament onto my veil, and now it's ready to, somebody has a good suggestion for next time. Oh, Headsjim Millinery, hello, it's good to see you. She's another milliner who hasn't shown up in a while. We've all been sort of overwhelmed with the holidays and also life and loss, and I'm so excited to see you all coming back and joining me today. So I have just finished this mourning veil here. I'm not sure, I don't think the woman that this is for, I suspect that she's not in the stream today, but I will be sending it out to her, I guess, probably tomorrow if I can get this done. Her husband passed away of glioblastoma, which is a brain cancer that a colleague of mine at the theater had when I first began working there. And Lord, that's a bad one. Ken, when he got it, he was lucky enough to be part of an experimental drug trial, and so he was able to continue to teach and act for another couple of years. And I do think that research into the treatment of that cancer has certainly moved forward, because this woman who this veil is actually for, I read her GoFundMe about or what had happened to her husband, who, like I said, passed away on Saturday. And he had glioblastoma for something like 10, 12 years. I mean, it was like a staggeringly long time to have that cancer. All right. I have my headband put on through my little loops here. If you can, it's black on black. You probably can't see that because it's always super hard to light that sort of thing. I'm going to put it on myself just because I can. Well, I have a headband on that I should take off. Put it on myself just to check the balance and make sure that it is what it is, and that I'm happy with how it hangs. I am. Oh, this is great. I can see you guys. I don't think you can see me at all. Yes, it's what I hoped it would be, and it will be going off to its new wearer tomorrow if I can get the stuff ready for the postal worker to pick up in time. But now, with the last 15 minutes of my stream, I want to talk about this hat back here. And hopefully trim it out. So, same pattern as the other three. I will totally wear this thing in my actual life quite frequently. If I wasn't going to trim it out in the rest of the stream, I'd wear it in the rest of the stream. It's just such a great shape. It's just such a great shape. Thank you. There's a lot of flattering comments from the folks who are watching on Instagram. I think that this requires more than just its own shape, because I actually think that you could wear this in the day, certainly, but it seems more sophisticated than something you just like throw on. So can you see these? These are stripped quills. So, and I've never worked with these, actually. I've never worked with these as a milliner, because as a theatrical milliner, these are very contemporary. I'm sure you could find them in 19th century millinery decor, but they're used a lot in particularly contemporary racewear and wedding millinery. It's basically like an ostrich plume that all of the flues have been stripped off of. These have been dyed or painted black. There are two of them here. And my idea was let's see, I've created a little mount for them, which is, took a little piece of that same black felt that I just created the ornament for that mourning veil, and that I sewed this hat out of, as per similarly being inspired by Kim and using felt for trimming out itself. I cut several different widths of the felt. I have a very thin piece that I did a sort of an owl's head knot on, thinking that might be what I wanted to do to hold these two stripped quills together. It seemed too small of a scale, this narrow version, especially because the quills themselves are already quite small. I felt like it needed something a bit wider, and I originally started out with twice this width, so it was like a fat inch, but that was too big, particularly since when you look at the rest of the hat, and you think about the proportionality of design here. I didn't top stitch these two orbital seams, I guess, that create the peaks of the Homburg crown. Christina asks, wool felt. This is actually fur felt skirting. I purchased an antique felt circle skirt that had significant bleach damage to one half of the skirt. It looked like the person that had worn it had maybe sat down in an area that had been spritzed with some bleach to clean a surface or something, because when you bleach black dyed stuff, it turns into basically like the color of this table. It gets that sort of brownish weirdness. So there were a couple of large patches of bleached area on this black felt skirt. So it was, it was not restorable to a wearable garment. But I took it apart and used one half that was not damaged by the bleach exposure to cut this hat out. And actually I still have enough from that one half a circle of the skirt to make 2 or 3 more hats. Not necessarily this style. I'll probably try out some other styles. Christina says, those are awesome. I have a few tubular fur felt skirting. Oh, I'm jealous. Okay. Christina, you need to make some stuff on IGTV with that. So anyway, I've got my little ornament here, and I've pinned it on, and I think I actually want it going the other way. No, the skirting itself is not circular. This flat skirt or flat felt has been sewn into like 2 pieces that are half a donut sewn together to make a circle skirt. And so I have that whole front piece of the skirt pattern that I cut this hat from and the other hats. I think in terms of my ornament, if you look at this here, oh, I unpinned it. I didn't mean to do that. I had pinned it so that these little tails of the ribbon were going down, and I think I want to actually have them be evocative of, when you put a feather ornament on the side of a hat, like a fedora, for example, it sticks up, and I think I want, ow, stab myself. I think I have to nail these guys down so that I have set an alarm, by the way, so that I don't go over this week, because I have some other stuff that I need to get done after 4 p.m. So that's the goal, is to use these stripped quills as an ornament on the side of this hat. Oh, they went down. I gotta really anchor them because now they want to rotate down with their own weight. Um, oh, I can do that. Okay, let me just put one more pin in it so that we can get an idea of what the finished hat will wear like. Um, I cannot wait to get back to work and wear this thing around the Department of Dramatic Art while I'm at work. Oh yes. Can you even see those? I feel like they're so thin. I need to be in front of a white drop, I think. They're so thin that you don't really see them sweeping around back there. You know, I feel like I need to stabilize my ornament with these stripped quills. And then once they're done winging around, you know, once they are secured in this little ribbon ornament, that is what I need. And actually I will probably put a drop of glue on there. Oh, Christina says I would curl the ends with a curling iron. Oh, that's a good idea. That is cool. Love to use the stripped quills. Yes, I love to use the stripped quills. Well, I say that as someone who I just admitted I have not used them before, because in theatrical millinery you don't have call to really use every trim out there, and so far we have not had a costume designer pick something that called for the use of stripped quills. So there's something that, as a trim, there's something that I have continually admired and yet never had occasion to use until now. And I think what I want to do is stabilize these things and then do some work positioning them on the hat and really determining where I want them to be. And it may be that they are too long. I might need to cut back some of the length. We shall see. So I'm sewing in creating this little piece of trim, coming up between the two stripped quills, through and through the felt itself, to sort of really stabilize their position. And now that I'm thinking about it, you know, this is one of those circumstances where I could probably benefit from a drop of glue. You know, I don't like to use glue in millinery from a theatrical standpoint, because it's very difficult to undo glue. That's Sobo and other white glues that are water-based. Sometimes you can get them to let go with steam or soaking in water. But for the most part, you know, once you glue something on a hat, it's glued. And, you know, if you're going to change it, then you got to figure out how to trim it out so you don't see that blob of glue, because there it is. But in thinking about this ornament, which I am making this hat for myself, I am not making this hat for any type of show. I could, let me trim this little bit of thread off of there. I could probably stick a drop of glue inside this ornament to stabilize these stripped quills, and that would be an efficient way to really stabilize this. And like I said, since this is not a hat for a theatrical production, it's not a hat that needs to go back into costume stock and get retrimmed someday, or, you know, none of those considerations are to the point here that I think I could get away with doing it. And frankly, I suppose after this studio stream, once I get to the point where I'm ready to sew these onto this hat, maybe I will take this ornament apart and put a little bit of glue in there just for stabilization. There's some interesting conversation going on in the chat here that you can sew through the quill carefully. Oh, that is a good idea. I could. And that is a case, if I were sewing through this quill, that is a case where the fact that I have a leather needle would benefit me, because it's got that point that is kind of like, it's got, you know, it's got a triangular cross section, so it's like 3 blades really, so you can really penetrate the organic matter of the quill quite nicely with a leather needle. But yes, I'm excited that Christina agrees with me that glue is really the answer to this stabilization issue. But God, I just love this hat. It's such a good shape. So if you look on my YouTube channel, I did a short video on how I made the first one of these hats. If you absolutely love it and you are like, I need one too, in that video, which I think is called Making a 1940s Hat Reproduction from Flat Felt or something, I show a close-up of the pattern, and it's an image that I got it off of, I believe, Pinterest. And it's got a grid pattern where each square comes out to 1 inch, and I blew it up from there. And in that video, I go through the process of making a mock-up first, and making the mock-up of the pattern exactly as it was drafted in the original 1940s article, Women's Magazine article. It does not turn out to be this shape. I did some alterations to that pattern, which I talk about in the video. So if you want to make yourself one of these, watch that video, and you can screenshot it and take the pattern, you know, draft the pattern from that screenshot of the grid pattern. Alexa, stop.
I hate waking up.
Alexa, stop. That's my alarm that lets me know that I'm to the end of my studio stream time. Oh, my video. It looks like my video may or may not be working on Instagram now. But anyway, long story short, I will put a link in the comments on YouTube, or in the video information on YouTube, the little caption description, to Randy's shop on Etsy, that where you could get, if you want this set of the head size ovals for drafting millinery patterns. I'll put a link to that in the YouTube channel. And then, yeah, check out the video on this hat. I'll see if I can put a link to that video. If you would like to make one of these, it's so good in black felt, is it not? It's really like, I feel like a Batman villain or something, except like I'm a nice person. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me in my studio stream this week. First stream of 2021. I will be here for the foreseeable future every Thursday afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, unless something preempts it with respect to the theater or the university or whatever. So, see you next week, and thanks for dropping by.